What my mother recognized back then, and what I understand now, is that grief is the most painful experience that any child or parent can endure.
The British royal family has always been a source of fascination, but recent whispers about young Princess Charlotte and her relationship with Queen Camilla have caught everyone's attention. What started as speculation has grown into something much more intriguing, with observers wondering if there's more beneath the surface of their interactions. It all began with what seemed like an ordinary family moment at Buckingham Palace. Princess Charlotte, just 9 years old, was walking through the grand halls with her parents, Prince William and Kate. These private family moments are precious in royal life, away from cameras and public scrutiny. But this particular walk took an unexpected turn. As they passed the familiar portraits and glittering chandeliers, Charlotte suddenly stopped. What she said next reportedly left her parents stunned. "I'll show you the real Queen Camilla." William and Kate's reaction was immediate. Kate gently but firmly told Charlotte, "You can't say things like that. There are always people listening." But Charlotte didn't back down. Instead, she looked at her parents with a seriousness that was unsettling and said, "I pray everyone watches this." For a 9-year-old to speak with such conviction suggests she's picked up on something significant. Children, especially those growing up in the royal spotlight, often notice things adults miss or choose to ignore. They haven't learned to filter their observations through political correctness or social expectations.
I don't know how many visits I've paid here now. Quite a lot. I know my husband's the patron.
According to those close to the family, Charlotte's bold statement wasn't random. She had apparently overheard something that deeply troubled her, a private conversation that was never meant for her ears. Charlotte reportedly heard Queen Camilla making comments about Prince William's readiness to be king. These weren't supportive observations from a stepmother figure. Instead, Camilla allegedly suggested that William lacked the strength and stability needed to lead the monarchy. She supposedly compared him unfavorably to King Charles, implying that Charles should remain in power as long as possible. For a child who sees her father as a hero, hearing such dismissive comments would be devastating. Charlotte understood enough about royal hierarchy to know that these weren't just casual opinions. They could influence important decisions about her family's future. What made it worse was Charlotte's growing suspicion that Camilla's influence was being used strategically. Rather than supporting the next generation of royals, Charlotte believed Camilla was working to preserve her own position and power. The young princess felt that Camilla was subtly undermining her father's role while publicly appearing supportive. Charlotte's concerns weren't based on a single overheard conversation. She had been quietly observing for months, collecting impressions and noticing patterns that others might dismiss. Children are remarkably perceptive, especially when it comes to detecting genuine versus fake behavior. Charlotte noticed that while Camilla appeared polite in public, there was something colder beneath the surface when it came to her and her siblings. The Queen's interest in George, Louis, and Charlotte herself seemed limited and forced. Where others saw appropriate royal behavior, Charlotte sensed indifference or even subtle hostility. Charlotte had picked up on subtle cues that suggested Camilla viewed the Wales children not as beloved step-grandchildren, but as future threats to her own influence.
I might have to nudge him. I quite like to take that one away from him, because it's such a special place that every time I'm asked,
To understand Charlotte's perspective, you have to consider the powerful influence of her late grandmother, Princess Diana. Though Charlotte never met Diana, she's grown up surrounded by her memory. William has worked hard to keep Diana's spirit alive in their household, sharing stories of her kindness, warmth, and genuine connection with people. For Charlotte, Diana represents everything a royal should be: authentic, caring, and close to the people. Diana's approach to royalty was revolutionary in its humanity. She broke down barriers, showed emotion, and made the monarchy feel accessible and real. Now imagine Charlotte comparing these stories of Diana with her observations of Camilla. Where Diana was warm and natural, Camilla appears formal and distant. Where Diana seemed to genuinely care about people, Camilla's interactions might feel calculated or dutiful rather than heartfelt. The contrast is particularly sharp for Charlotte because she's been raised in Diana's image. William and Kate have embraced Diana's approach to parenting and public service, creating a more open and emotionally healthy environment for their children. In Charlotte's world, authenticity matters more than protocol. The tension Charlotte senses might stem from fundamentally different philosophies about what it means to be royal. Charlotte has grown up in a more modern, relaxed approach to monarchy. Her parents emphasize mental health, genuine connections, and being relatable to the public. They've raised their children to be real people first, royal second. Camilla, on the other hand, came to royal life much later and had to adapt to existing traditions and expectations. Her approach is necessarily more careful and structured. She learned to navigate royal protocols and public scrutiny as an adult, which creates a different relationship with the role. For Charlotte, who has never known anything but this more open approach to royalty, Camilla's formal style might feel inauthentic or even threatening to the family culture she knows and loves. It's not that Camilla is wrong, she's simply operating from a different playbook. Royal watchers have noticed several public moments that seem to support Charlotte's observations. During Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in 2022, Charlotte had a typical sibling moment with George, responding loudly when he pinched her. Camilla's reaction was reportedly one of visible irritation, and she allegedly asked Kate to handle Charlotte's behavior. For many observers, this showed a lack of understanding about how children process grief and stress. Charlotte was attending her great-grandmother's funeral, a deeply emotional event for any child. Yet Camilla seemed more concerned with appearances than with Charlotte's emotional needs. At King Charles's coronation in 2023, body language experts noted how Charlotte maintained physical distance from Camilla. She performed the required curtsy for Charles, but appeared to skip the gesture for Camilla. Whether intentional or not, these small acts of protocol matter enormously in royal contexts. In family photos and public appearances, Charlotte consistently appears more reserved when Camilla is nearby. She stays close to her parents and rarely makes extended eye contact with the Queen. These might seem like minor details, but in a world where every gesture is analyzed, they create a pattern.
You know, it's quite often all the men who get celebrated and not the women, so I think you're doing a brilliant job here by...
Charlotte's feelings towards Camilla are also influenced by the complicated history that preceded her birth. Even though Charlotte wasn't around during the Charles-Diana-Camilla triangle, its effects continue to shape her family's story. Camilla's path to becoming queen was long and controversial. Her early relationship with Charles, the years of separation, and the eventual public emergence of their romance created a narrative that many people never fully accepted. For Charlotte, growing up with this history as background, Camilla might always feel like an intruder in her family's story. The public's mixed feelings about Camilla haven't gone unnoticed by Charlotte either. Children pick up on adult conversations, news coverage, and social attitudes. Charlotte has probably heard enough comments and discussions to understand that not everyone sees Camilla as a legitimate queen. Adding another layer to this dynamic is Princess Anne's reported skepticism about Camilla. Anne, known for her no-nonsense approach and deep respect for royal tradition, has apparently never fully welcomed Camilla into the royal fold. While she maintains public politeness, insiders suggest Anne still views Camilla as somewhat of an outsider. If Charlotte has observed this tension between Anne and Camilla, it would only reinforce her own concerns. Anne represents the old guard of royalty, someone who has dedicated her entire life to duty and service. If even Anne maintains some distance from Camilla, Charlotte might feel justified in her own reservations.
That the monarchy provides, with the Constitution, a degree of long-term.
What makes Charlotte's observations particularly compelling is that children often see things adults miss or choose to ignore. They haven't learned to make excuses for behavior that feels wrong, or to rationalize away their instincts for the sake of keeping peace. Charlotte's comment about showing the real Queen Camilla suggests she believes there's a difference between Camilla's public persona and her private behavior. This kind of insight from a 9-year-old is remarkable, but not impossible. Children who grow up around powerful adults often develop sophisticated abilities to read people and situations. Charlotte's concerns about Camilla aren't just family drama. They potentially represent a broader question about the future of the monarchy. If the next generation of royals doesn't trust or respect the current queen, what does that mean for the institution's stability? Charlotte represents the future of the royal family. Her generation will inherit not just titles and responsibilities, but also the challenge of keeping the monarchy relevant and respected. If she truly believes Camilla is working against her family's interests, this tension could have long-lasting effects. What do you think about this? Does Princess Charlotte see something the rest of us don't? Or are we just witnessing the early instincts of a future queen in the making? Let us know in the comments section below and make sure to like the video. Thanks for watching.